Today, I'll be discussing Dr. Robert Cialdini's book, Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion, a renowned authority on the art of persuasion and influence globally. This book has 592 pages, and I will spend about 30 minutes highlighting its essence. Our brains, in order to react quickly in fast-paced environments, make subconscious decisions based on certain automatic principles. We think we are making decisions independently and wisely, but in reality, our thoughts and judgments are often influenced by the actions and words of others. These influences may seem unrelated to our decisions, but they indeed change our decisions, making us unconsciously follow others' arrangements. Influence focuses on this, summarizing the most common and powerful psychological decision-making principles, revealing the secrets of common thinking traps in life. We all know that we should be rational in our consumption, but in modern society, this is very difficult to achieve. Sometimes, we might queue for hours to buy a cup of milk tea or impulsively buy unnecessary items on sale during shopping festivals. The most puzzling part is that looking back, even we ourselves cannot understand what happened. Why did I spend so much time? What do I need that item for? Rest assured, this is not just your problem. In fact, these foolish actions are merely common human behavioral patterns. Speaking of behavioral patterns, we cannot ignore Pavlov's classical conditioning experiments. In his experiments, a light would be turned on every time the dogs were fed. Eventually, even without presenting food, just the sight of the light would make the dogs salivate. This is because in the dogs' brains, the condition of the light being turned on was tightly linked to the subsequent arrival of food. Therefore, seeing the light could stimulate the dogs to perform a fixed reflexive behavior, which is salivating. This behavioral pattern is just like playing a CD. As long as you press the play button, the pre-recorded music will play. Do you think humans do not act in such a mechanistic, blind manner? In fact, the same switch button is installed in us, except our conditioned reflexes are not so straightforward. The reason for this is that we encounter too many things every day, especially in a fast-paced modern society. If we had to think through the cause and effect every time before acting, even the largest brain capacity wouldn't be able to handle it. Thus, our brains have developed a shortcut. Based on memory and experience, it categorizes things by different features and records the corresponding behaviors and cognitive patterns. The next time the brain recognizes a similar feature, the button is pressed, and we react reflexively like playing a CD. This type of conditioned reflex saves us time and energy, but it also presents significant risks, making it very easy to manipulate our thinking and actions. To make wise decisions or to persuade others to follow your advice, you need to understand the underlying principles. We do not follow others without reason, nor should we persuade others without reason. The secrets of compliance and persuasion lie within influence. Dr. Robert Cialdini has been a professor in the Department of Psychology at Arizona State University for many years. This book he brings us is firstly a rigorous academic work, with arguments sourced from important experimental results in social psychology. However, at the same time, it is a book written for the general public. The tone of the writing is like casual conversation, and the examples often involve foolish mistakes made by the author and his friends. It is this down-to-earth approach that makes this book particularly enlightening for our everyday lives. This book, Influence, analyzes a large number of common behaviors in modern society, summarizing several psychological forces that influence us subconsciously, among which the most important are the principles of reciprocity, commitment and consistency, and social proof. The principle of reciprocity states that if someone does something for us, we feel obligated to do something for them in return, The principle of commitment and consistency refers to a natural sense of duty to keep our promises and maintain consistency in our words and actions. And finally, the principle of social proof is a type of herd mentality, suggesting that in public, we often look at others' behaviors to decide our own actions. The author summarizes these three principles, which are very common human psychologies, transcending most national and cultural differences and widely existing in various human societies, helping these societies maintain smooth and normal operation. Social interactions require the principle of reciprocity. The principle of commitment and consistency ensures that we can trust others. As for the principle of social proof, it allows society to be more harmonious and stable. However, water can carry a boat but can also capsize it. If we let these operate mechanically, these three common psychologies can also become our biggest weaknesses. Next, let's talk in detail about the psychological forces mentioned in this book and how they influence our lives. First part. Let's take a look at the principle of reciprocity. Reciprocity means there are benefits on both sides. Simply put, we subconsciously feel that if someone has done us a favor, we are under their favor, and therefore, we cannot remain indifferent, nor can we repay kindness with ingratitude. Instead, we should reciprocate with another kind of favor. This desire to reciprocate equally is the principle of reciprocity. We have this sense of responsibility not merely because we are kind-hearted. In fact, the principle of reciprocity is deeply engraved in human civilization. If you receive a birthday gift, then you must remember to return a gift on the other person's birthday. If you receive a wedding gift, you must give a larger gift for the other person's child's full-month celebration. In everyday life, we inevitably experience this, right? Sometimes, giving and returning gifts can indeed be heart-wrenching, but there is no choice. Reciprocity and social exchange are essential parts of our social relationships. According to anthropologists and sociologists, this tit-for-tat repayment is the foundation for the successful development of human social civilization. On one hand, it ensures that our ancestors could exchange the living resources and skills they lacked, greatly promoting the development of productivity. On the other hand, it is also an important bond for creating and maintaining interpersonal relationships. Because of this, it has internalized into our daily thinking, establishing a behavior pattern that profoundly affects us. Even when a stranger offers us a small favor, we suddenly feel less able to refuse their request. The saying goes, "One who eats from others' plates is soft-spoken, and one who takes from others is short-handed," and this is the reasoning. Therefore, offering customers free product trials or giving them small gifts can be said to be some of the oldest marketing techniques. For example, supermarkets provide tasting services. Also, when gyms attract customers, they often offer several days of free trial periods. In these common situations, the principle of reciprocity does not cause us much trouble and can even be a very useful tool at times. However, this principle can occasionally become difficult to deal with. For instance, sometimes we have not asked anyone to do anything for us, but they take it upon themselves to come to our door and offer us some insignificant favors. However, even in such situations, the deeply ingrained principle of reciprocity still affects us. If we owe a favor, we always feel uncomfortable until we find a way to return it and can relax again. At these times, we are particularly susceptible to accepting the other party's requests. For example, the author introduces a common fundraising tactic in the United States in this book. Members of an organization roam the busy streets, suddenly handing a flower to a passerby and telling them, "This flower is a gift for you. Please be sure to accept it." Then, the organization member introduces their identity and asks for a donation of $1 or $2. Most passersby are not interested in the organization and do not need a flower, but because they feel they have received a gift, they inevitably feel indebted and subconsciously feel they owe the other party. To get rid of this unpleasant feeling, passersby usually hand out some change to quickly settle the matter. Thus, the fundraising success rate for this organization is indeed much higher than other similar organizations. Just by giving you a flower you didn't want, the principle of reciprocity can be very powerful. However, what is most frightening is that sometimes the other party does not even need to give you a flower, but can still use the principle of reciprocity to make you comply. Suppose I am your friend and now want to borrow money from you. I start by asking to borrow $1,000, but you really do not want to lend it and refuse me. Then I back down and say, if not 1,000, could you at least lend me 200? Don't you suddenly feel this request sounds much more reasonable? You might think, I've already refused him once. Now that he's stepped back, I should step back too. 1,000 is indeed too much, but 200, well, I'll lend it to him. This method can be seen as a compromise process influenced by the principle of reciprocity, named the rejection and retreat strategy by the author. You accept someone's kindness and feel involuntarily obligated to reciprocate. Similarly, even if the other party has given you nothing, just by making a concession first, you also feel obliged to make a similar concession. To put it plainly, this is getting something for nothing, but it indeed works. The principle here is that when you make a request, do it in the order of first big, then small. In the borrowing example mentioned earlier, I might have only wanted to ask you for $200, but if I started with that, you might have refused me right off the bat. So, the initial $1,000 was just a smokescreen. This larger-than-smaller request strategy is very effective. For example, when we go shopping, smart salespeople will first recommend the most expensive or the lowest cost performance product to us, knowing full well that they probably won't sell it. The key is that they want customers to refuse them once, thus giving them a better chance to sell what they really want to sell. Whether the other party first offers a little favor or deliberately makes a concession to seek a return, the principle of reciprocity is a powerful weapon that can exert pressure on us invisibly. To combat this, we should calmly view the attached discounts and concessions, realizing these are just means, and we are not obligated to respond. However, conversely, if we regard everyone's kindness as a scam, our lives would be truly miserable. The best approach might be to remain unchanged despite myriad changes, determine your own bottom line, and resolutely not buy things you initially did not plan to buy, nor lend money you initially felt should not be lent. Lastly, although the author describes the principle of reciprocity as a ferocious beast, it is actually widely used in marketing and negotiation. After understanding this common human psychological pattern, whether in social exchanges in life or employing retreat strategies in negotiations, we can also use it well in various situations. The principle of reciprocity says that when we feel someone's kindness, we want to reciprocate. Similarly, sometimes the words we say and the actions we take can in turn influence our subsequent thoughts and actions. Next, let's take a look at the principle of commitment and consistency. Second part. Keeping one's word is a virtue. If someone is inconsistent, denies their previous statements, or changes their mind frequently, we will feel they are unreliable. We always want to appear as trustworthy and reasonable in others' eyes, so we strive to maintain consistency in our words and actions. Once we have expressed an opinion or stance, we will try our best to defend it. In most cases, maintaining consistency brings relatively ideal results, but as mentioned above, Once our brain judges this behavior as good, it is easy to form a mechanical, tape recorder-like reflex pattern. Therefore, we might also insist on keeping our promises and maintaining consistency subconsciously, ignoring the actual circumstances around us, sometimes leading us into a crisis of blind action. Many businesses and organizations will try to exploit this. The commitment mentioned here is sometimes specific, made proactively by us. Let's cite an example the author experienced. In the United States, the Christmas shopping frenzy is very famous. Additionally, because parents always want to give their children a gift for Christmas, toys sell particularly well before Christmas. Conversely, because no one will immediately buy new toys for their children after Christmas, sales naturally plummet. Many toy manufacturers are eager to change the situation, so they use a strategy. Before Christmas, they heavily broadcast TV advertisements promoting a particularly interesting and expensive new racing toy. After seeing the advertisement, children will beg their parents to buy it. For parents, with Christmas approaching and having planned to buy a gift anyway, they might as well buy this one. It's only once a year, and spending a bit more money is fine, so they promise their child to bring this racing toy home. However, when parents go to the store, they find that the racing toy is sold out everywhere. What to do? Christmas is almost here, and they can't go home empty-handed, so they have to buy some other toys to make do. When they get home, the child sees there's no promised racing toy and is naturally unhappy, while the parents also feel they are at fault, so they make another promise, saying they will definitely buy the racing toy as soon as it's in stock. You can guess what happens next. Once Christmas is over, the racing toys immediately arrive in stock. Thanks to these parents who keep their word, the toy manufacturers maintain good sales numbers even in the off-season. What is being exploited here is the specific promise parents made to their children. Other times, we may not really make a promise to a specific object, just expressing a certain stance or opinion, which is enough to create immense psychological pressure, forcing us to act according to what we have said. In school, when we make mistakes, we are often required to write a reflection letter, clearly writing, "What I did was wrong, and I will never make this mistake again." The underlying principle is the same. Reflection letters have no legal effect, but studies have shown that once a person expresses an opinion to others through their own writing or voice, even if they originally did not truly agree with it, they will subconsciously believe they indeed have the duty to put it into practice. This is also what we commonly say, "Some words become true once spoken." Isn't there often such a plot in TV dramas? A young person is egged on by friends to jokingly confess to another person. Beforehand, it seemed like they had no such thoughts, but once the words are spoken, they seem involuntarily to really like the other person. This plotline is not only found in artistic creations, it is influenced by the commitment and consistency principle. In this sense, we can also actively use this principle to subtly push ourselves to achieve a difficult goal. For instance, if you want to quit smoking but fear you lack self-discipline, you can choose 7 or 8 close friends and announce to them, "I'm quitting smoking," preferably writing it down and signing it, then distributing it to everyone. This will greatly strengthen your subconscious sense of duty to keep this commitment, and your success rate will also increase. This behavior is effective partly because of our desire to maintain consistency, and partly because this expression itself can constitute a ritual, and we need to make an effort to pass through this ritual. Research shows that the more effort we need to put into accomplishing something, the more important we consider it. For example, many large companies set incredibly high thresholds for recruiting employees. Sometimes, applicants spend a month passing various written tests and interviews before they can finally get the job. Statistical data show that the more arduously an employee enters a company, the higher their loyalty to the company and the stronger their pride in their work. Even if they encounter setbacks at work, they are not likely to easily give up. Conversely, employees who are easily recruited into a company are also much more likely to leave. Of course, blindly insisting on consistency, regardless of circumstances, sometimes appears very foolish. For example, the highly publicized suicide incident at Dentsu in Japan. A young woman who graduated from a prestigious school entered the largest company in the industry, which could be said to have a promising future, but ended up committing suicide due to excessive work pressure. Many people find this incomprehensible. Why not just resign if the work pressure is too high? Why must one resort to such an extreme? But actually, this example also reveals the power of the commitment and consistency psychology. Sometimes we have already invested too much in our current life and have received the envy of others. Even if we know it is very hard, we still cannot openly admit this. Since persistence is considered a virtue, giving up halfway naturally appears as a cowardly act. But now we know that this thinking is just a kind of mechanical, taper-a-quarter-like mindset. Many times, adapting to the situation and keeping oneself relaxed is equally important. The principle of commitment and consistency says that we usually do not want to appear inconsistent and strive to maintain consistency with our previous image. Now, let's discuss the last key point, the principle of social proof, which describes a mentality of wanting to stay consistent with the people around us and the common views in society. Third part. The principle of social proof actually describes a kind of herd mentality. Simply put, we always look at others' behaviors to judge the rightness of a matter. Especially in public, the actions of those around us strongly guide our own actions. Generally speaking, this approach is indeed much safer, but herd mentality often leads us to make decisions contrary to our wishes. The principle of social proof is widely exploited in many ways. For example, beggars will first put some small change in their bowls to show that others have already given them alms. TV sitcoms always insert recorded audience laughter at various segments so that viewers in front of the TV, even if they do not genuinely find the jokes funny, will be unconsciously led astray by the laughter. Also, the most common advertising technique is not to directly promote the quality of a product, but to promote its sales volume. The underlying message is, everyone is buying our product, so you should too. The main reason we join shopping frenzies like Double 11 is because we see others also buying. In the American sales industry, there is a saying, among our customers, only 5% have their own ideas. The rest are 95% imitators. When does the principle of social proof work best? It is when we ourselves are feeling uneasy, unsure about our next choice, hesitating. We observe others' reactions to dispel our own doubts. However, one fact we often overlook is that others might also be hesitating. They might be doing the same thing as us. Especially when the situation is unclear, everyone is observing each other, waiting for someone else to act, leading to a direct consequence that no one will take the lead. There is a term to describe this situation called pluralistic ignorance. To put it more colloquially, it's 3 monks have no water to drink. Sometimes this situation can lead to very serious consequences. One night in 1964, a murder occurred in a residential area in New York. A young woman was stabbed to death on the street, and the entire chase lasted half an hour. At least 38 nearby residents witnessed or heard the murder happening, but no one came out to stop it, nor did anyone make an anonymous emergency call. After this fact was revealed, public opinion was in an uproar. No one knew why things had turned out this way. so the media unanimously blamed it on the cold, numb urban life, saying that the fast-paced modern society had turned urban residents into cold-hearted monsters. Many similar incidents have occurred. For example, someone suddenly falls ill in a bustling street, passers-by walk by one after another, but no one stops to help. At first glance, such incidents indeed seem only criticizable as a decline in public morals. However, psychologists like the author have their own different explanations. They believe that behind these bad incidents is the principle of social proof. People always do not understand why, with so many witnesses, there was not even one person willing to help. However, the problem lies in the fact that there are too many people. Everyone is waiting for others to act, each thinking, since there are so many people here, someone will definitely step forward. In other words, if no one has stepped forward, then we will subconsciously think that everything is normal and there is no need to take any action. This leads to an interesting conclusion. Sometimes, for those in dangerous situations needing help, having more people present is not necessarily better. Especially in situations like falling ill on the street, if there are only one or two people present, the chances of being rescued are much greater. This conclusion is also supported by various behavioral experiments. Thus, people in cities do not receive help not because urbanites are cold and heartless, but because in large cities, first, the environment changes rapidly, making it difficult to judge the situation. Second, urban population density is high. And lastly, on the streets of big cities, no one knows anyone else. It is these three factors that lead to people being more inclined to observe others' reactions, creating the aforementioned situation of pluralistic ignorance. However, even though people are not deliberately ignoring others' predicaments, this phenomenon is still very dangerous. Therefore, the author offers a suggestion here. If you suddenly fall ill or are attacked and need help, the best way is not to call for help from a large group of people, but to pick out one person from the crowd while you still have consciousness and can act, point at them, and clearly say, "This man in a blue shirt, please help me make an emergency call." This simple sentence can eliminate all uncertainties. The person you designated knows they have a responsibility to help you, so they do not need to look at others' reactions to act. All scientific evidence indicates that this approach can greatly increase the likelihood of being rescued. The author particularly points out that among all the psychological principles mentioned in this book, he hopes readers will remember the one discussed above. The reverse application of the principle of social proof can potentially save lives in an emergency. In fact, all these psychological principles are double-edged swords. Others can use them, and of course, you can use them too. The key is to understand their structure and keep them in mind. That's about it for today's content. Now, let's briefly review the content shared today. Firstly, we talked about the psychological principle of reciprocity. Reciprocity means that we subconsciously feel that if someone does something for us, we should also do something for them. In sales or negotiations, whether the other party first offers a small favor or deliberately makes a concession to seek a return, the principle of reciprocity is a powerful weapon that can exert pressure on us invisibly. To combat this, we should calmly view the attached discounts and concessions, realizing these are just means, and we are not obligated to respond. Next, we discuss the principle of commitment and consistency. We strive to keep our words and actions consistent. When we make a promise to others, stating our stance, we will try our best to defend it. Sometimes, this might be a specific promise made to a particular object, and other times it might just be expressing an opinion, but this is enough to create immense psychological pressure, forcing us to act according to what we have said. Blindly insisting on consistency regardless of circumstances, can sometimes appear very foolish. For our own consumption of products, we still need to enhance our discernment. Additionally, we should also be brave in facing changes in our own mood. Lastly, we discussed the principle of social proof. Simply put, we always look at others' behaviors to judge the rightness of a matter. Especially in public, the actions of those around us strongly guide our own actions. However, because this psychology is so common, in unclear situations, everyone might be observing each other and no one acts, which can lead to the phenomenon of 3 monks have no water to drink. We think we make decisions independently and wisely, but in reality, our thoughts and judgments are often influenced by the actions and words of others. These influences may seem insignificant, unrelated to our decisions, but they indeed affect us, changing our decisions, making us unconsciously follow others' arrangements. This book, Influence, categorizes these influencing forces and clearly explains their principles. Of course, these psychological principles themselves do not harm or help people, they are just completely neutral tools. We might be deceived because of these principles, but we can also use them to persuade others, making work smoother, reducing communication problems in daily interactions, and even potentially saving our lives. However, remember that the various mental states and thinking patterns summarized by psychology, although derived from extensive scientific experiments, are very rigorous conclusions, but human thinking is too complex. The principles discussed in this book are just some more common phenomena and are not universally applicable formulas. The specific situations still vary from person to person and from social environment to social environment. If you apply these principles indiscriminately everywhere, just as the author says, you would truly be falling into a mechanical, blind thinking trap. That's the essence of this book. You can click the description below the video to find the link to the book. Welcome to read it. You can also share this book with your friends. If you like the content of Daily Book Dive, click the subscribe button to stay updated. Your encouragement helps us continue bringing book essence to our community. Congratulations, you've finished another book.